December 29th, 2024, was a turning point in Georgia's political landscape as Mikheil Kavelashvili, a former soccer player with a strong pro-Russian stance, was sworn in as the new president of Georgia. His inauguration was overshadowed by widespread protests and a bitter legitimacy dispute with outgoing president Salome Zurabishvili. Kavelashvili, 53, a right-wing populist and vocal critic of the West, took the oath of office during a ceremony in the Georgian parliament only hours after Zurabishvili left the presidential palace in Tbilisi. Despite leaving the palace, Zurabishvili stood firm, declaring herself the only legitimate president of Georgia and rejecting Kavelashvili's election as invalid. "I am taking legitimacy, the flag, and your trust with me," Zurabishvili said, speaking to thousands of supporters gathered outside the palace. Her departure was seen not as a concession, but as a protest against what she and her supporters view as an undemocratic election.
This presidential residence was a symbol of power, as long as there was a president here who was legitimate. I am bringing legitimacy with me. I am taking the flag with me. I am taking your trust with me. This is a real parody inauguration, and this country does not deserve such parodies. Cheers as camera pulls out. Because there is a parody, in contrast to us. They are behind closed doors, frightened, sold out, illegitimate, unrecognized by anyone, sanctioned, and bitter.
Zurabishvili, a pro-European Union leader who had clashed with the ruling Georgian Dream party, refused to accept Kavelashvili's rise, accusing him of being chosen by an electoral college tainted by fraud and manipulation. In her view, the election was a direct result of a rigged October parliamentary vote, which saw Georgian Dream win narrowly amid allegations of vote buying, violence, and other electoral malpractices. The political turmoil in Georgia intensified following Georgian Dream's victory in October. While the ruling party claimed the election was fair, international observers highlighted numerous irregularities, casting doubt on the legitimacy of the results. These concerns were exacerbated by the government's decision to suspend negotiations for Georgia's European Union accession, sparking anger among Georgians and triggering mass protests. In her farewell speech, Zurabishvili blamed the government's shift towards Russia and its abandonment of Georgia's EU aspirations. "We have no future if we move away from Europe," she said, rallying her supporters to continue the resistance. The suspension of EU accession talks until 2028, a critical goal outlined in Georgia's constitution, has deeply angered the public, who overwhelmingly support joining the European Union. This decision, coupled with a violent crackdown on protests and mass arrests, has only fueled the crisis. Kavelashvili, a former soccer player who briefly played for Manchester City, has consistently criticized the West, accusing it of trying to drag Georgia into conflict with Russia. A loyalist of Bidzina Ivanishvili, the reclusive billionaire and former prime minister, Kavelashvili's rise signals a clear pivot from Georgia's pro-European stance towards closer ties with Moscow. Kavelashvili's anti-Western rhetoric and his connections to Ivanishvili, who has faced recent US sanctions for steering Georgia away from the EU, have raised alarms both domestically and internationally. The US and European Union have condemned the increasing influence of Russia in Georgian politics, calling for an investigation into the allegations of election irregularities. At his swearing-in ceremony, Kavelashvili stressed the importance of peace for Georgia's survival. However, critics argue that his presidency will move the country closer to Russia at the expense of its European ambitions.
I plan to be everyone's president, regardless of whether they like me or not. My future efforts will be directed toward the consolidation and unification of society. Regardless of the opinions others may have on various issues, we must strive to unite around our homeland, shared values, the principles of mutual respect, and the future we should build together.
Outside Parliament, protesters mocked Kavelashvili by waving red cards, a nod to his soccer career, while also waving EU and Georgian flags to show their pro-European stance. As protests grew in size and intensity, tensions between the government and the public reached a boiling point. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets of Tbilisi, demanding fresh elections and rejecting Kavelashvili's presidency. Opposition leaders rallied behind Zurabishvili, insisting she was still the legitimate leader.
Because today, our president is a footballer, we are showing him a red card, and the next step will be sending him off the pitch. The Georgian people will definitely do this, because it was a circus that they have held today in the parliament. If you could see what expressions people who participating in that circus had, I really feel sorry for them.
The protests turned violent, with clashes between demonstrators and police. In the days leading up to Kavelashvili's inauguration, Georgian security forces detained over 400 people, including senior opposition figures. Many see this unrest as a fight for Georgia's democratic future, with the people rejecting the undemocratic actions of Georgian Dream and the consolidation of power under Kavelashvili. Behind the scenes, Bidzina Ivanishvili remains a powerful figure. The billionaire, once Georgia's prime minister, is widely believed to be the true power broker, with significant influence over both Georgian Dream and Kavelashvili.